Hi, I'm Janet Napolitano, Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security. Homeland Security begins with hometown security. That's why I'm pleased that Walmart is helping to make our communities more safe and secure. If you see something suspicious in the parking lot or in the store, say something immediately. Report suspicious activity to your local police or sheriff. If you need help, ask a Walmart manager for assistance. Thank you for doing your part to help keep our hometowns safe.
Welcome everyone to Global Government News. Today is Monday, December 6, 2010, and I'm Darko. New listeners and viewers, please visit my website, www.ggnonline.com. That's ggnonline.com. Welcome to this Big Brother news segment. I have some pretty good stories here I've collected over the past week or so. And this first one we have up is from Reuters, and it's titled EU Launches Google Investigation After Complaints. EU regulators opened a formal investigation into Google on Tuesday, putting pressure on the world's top internet search engine to offer concessions to settle antitrust complaints and avert a lengthy battle like Microsoft. Next one up is from Wired. Chipped detainees, Iran mega missile, and more in latest WikiLeaks. This is a little bit older. I did cover this. But I'll just read this first paragraph here. King Abdullah of Saudi Arabia told a senior White House official to consider surgically implanting homing devices under Guantanamo Bay detainees' skin. Said that's one of the many potentially embarrassing comments from the diplomatic back rooms now being made public by WikiLeaks. And I only included that because I wanted to get to this article. Scientists attach barcodes to mouse embryos and human ones coming soon. And it's weird because then I found this article, fertilized eggs get microscopic barcodes. So that was on the 22nd, and then this was, the 23rd, so the next day I found this article. It says here, researchers at the Autonomous University of Barcelona have come up with an ingenious solution for keeping track of embryos and egg cells during in vitro fertilization procedures. Microscopic barcodes. Says the mouse eggs were tagged by injecting microscopic silicone barcodes. I'm not even going to try to pronounce that. Space the gap between the cell membrane and the outer membrane called the zona pellucida. Said which binds sperm cells during fertilization. Said the barcodes, which carry unique binary identification numbers, are biologically inert. They do not affect the rate of embryo development and are shed before the embryos implant into the wall of the uterus. Says the technique aims to simplify individual embryo identification, streamlining in vitro fertilization and embryo transfer procedures. So that's right, folks. When the state takes over reproduction and it's no longer in the hands of the individuals or their families, and you have to be authorized to procreate, this will just help smooth the process along. You know, because Nazis are very good at information and records and administration, stuff like that. They're very good. TSA says airlines providing more passenger data. It says all airline passengers on flights to and from and within the United States are being checked against U.S. government security watch lists, the TSA said Tuesday. TSA said that all of nearly 130 international carriers flying to and from the United States have begun collecting new data from passengers, including their full name, date of birth, and gender, which are then checked against LIST, a program known as Secure Flight. So it said all domestic carriers began collecting that data in June. It says Secure Flight more effectively helps prevent misidentification of passengers who have similar names to those on the watch list, and then obviously helps better identify those who may be known or suspect a threat to aviation. I remember watching a video where there was a 6-year-old Boy Scout that was being treated like a terrorist and was arrested because of a mix-up. TSA takes full control of passenger watch list checks. It's like, do I think that's going to stop? No, I don't think that's going to help issues like that. TSA takes full control of passenger watch list checklist. Says the U.S. Department of Homeland Security stated that all passengers on flights, quote, within or bound for the United States are now being checked against government watch lists under implementation of the Transportation Security Administration's Secure Flight program. Next up, again, all U.S.-bound airlines get info for watch lists. So it says here all 197 airlines that fly to the U.S. are now collecting names, genders, and birth dates of passengers so the government can check them against a terror watch list before they fly, the Obama administration announced on Tuesday. And this next one up is about the body scanners. ACLU, flying Americans fear being put on government watch lists. Actually, this is not about the body scanners, but it says here the American Civil Liberties Union announced today that they're still receiving high volumes of complaints about the new airport screening procedures, and that some travelers say that they have not filed official complaints with the TSA because they are fearful of being placed on a government watch list. Well, that makes sense, right? It says last week the ACLU revealed that it had received over 900 complaints about the naked body scanners and new pat-down procedures being implemented by the TSA. It says the number swelled over 1,000 before November was through, according to the privacy watchdog. It says, quote, these complaints came from men, women, and children who reported feeling humiliated and traumatized by these searches, and in some cases comparing their psychological impact to sexual assaults, the ACLU website was noted. So we're going to move on here, and it says Bob Barr investigates TSA standout on National Opt-Out Day. That's right. I reported on this. Newark Airport controversial scanners are barely used on the busiest travel day. I covered it through a Natural News article where people were reporting that these scanners were actually shut down and people were allowed to just walk through. And just read this here. It says the choice between a virtual strip search and a grope was strictly academic Wednesday for most holiday travelers flying out of Newark Liberty International. The majority of Newark's full body scanners were idle throughout much of the day, depriving most passengers of the chance to opt out of the controversial screening procedure, even if they had wanted to. So go back to this right here. So I guess he's going to try to look into what had gone on that day, because the whole thing was that it was opt-out day. Everybody was supposed to opt out of the body scanners, but they shut them down so that people couldn't opt out, and that wasn't even covered in the mainstream media until something like this happened. There was only very few local. Because this is more local. Media sources covered that, but if you turned on your TV, you wouldn't have heard that. All you would have read, because I read some of these articles that were coming across Yahoo and Google and all them. You just PR propaganda pieces, and they were all saying, well, looks like all the opt-out gang and their little protests failed. So they were just saying that it was a failure. So this next one up is New Jersey legislation bans TSA scanners and criminalizes unreasonable searches and evasive pat-downs. Says New Jersey Senator Michael Dougherty announced today that he has introduced 3 pieces of legislation drafted to eliminate any immunity TSA agents might enjoy when violating New Jersey law during unnecessary and invasive airport screenings. Quote, for more than a month now, the TSA has quite literally stuck their finger in the eye of law-abiding citizens while trampling on their constitutionally guaranteed liberties, Dougherty said. Quote, we call upon every state legislator in our great country to immediately act upon and to put our federal government on notice that the dignity of our citizens shall not be at the cost of a failed federal open border policy. Next one up here is U.S. diplomats told to spy on other countries at United Nations. The U.S. State Department gave its diplomats instructions to spy on other countries' representatives at the United Nations. According to a directive signed by Hillary Clinton, diplomats were told to collect information about email accounts, credit cards, and passwords, among other things. Next one up is race is on to fingerprint phones and PCs. It says here, David Norris wants to collect the digital equivalent of fingerprints from every computer, cell phone, and TV setup box in the world. He's off to a good start, and says so far Mr. Norris' startup company, Blue Cava Incorporated, has identified 200 million devices. It says by the end of the next year, Blue Cava says it expects to have a catalog 1 billion of the world's estimated 10 billion devices. So as we move on here, this information is going to get a little scarier and scarier. It says advertisers no longer want to just buy ads. They want to buy access to specific people. So Mr. Norris is building a, quote, credit bureau for devices in which every computer or cell phone will have a, quote, reputation based on its users' online behavior, shopping habits, and demographics. He plans to sell this information to advertisers willing to pay top dollar for granular data about people's interests and activities. Device fingerprinting is a powerful emerging tool in this trade. It is, quote, the next generation of online advertising. So, next one up. This is a horrible story. Children will be giving shopping vouchers for walking to school. So in other words, they're going to get paid to go shop at Target. little target cards for taking a tracking device along with them and walking to school. Children will be getting shopping vouchers for walking to school under a radical government plan to combat obesity. So, it says under the scheme, which will be part of a public health white paper to be announced on Tuesday, children will receive top shop vouchers and cinema tickets for traveling to school on foot. But see, that's not the only thing. The biggest thing is that they're going to be carrying little GPS devices with them. And, the state is very serious about tracking their assets. They want to know where their property is, where it's going, and most importantly, just its everyday habits in traveling. Because traveling, they don't really like traveling, and they don't like their slaves moving about freely. They like to keep them on certain paths, go through certain intersections that are checkpoints, with the little cameras. Go on the toll road, go through the checkpoints, pay for them, have them search through your car. And so they don't like slaves just going around, moving around. They want to be able to have them on camera wherever they can. And so that's why they just put the biggest spy satellite in space ever in history just a week ago, and then they just test flight this 37B spy plane as well. So a lot of apparatuses are going up in space recently over the past year that all have to do with surveillance and spying, of course, on terrorists, right? But see, you're the terrorist now, so you have to think of terrorists as you. If you're not a stupid slave that's asleep drooling on yourself, then and you want a little bit of freedom, and you don't want to be having the government breathing down your neck, then then you're a terrorist. So it says under a pilot scheme underway in Wimbledon, South London, teenage girls received a £5 Top Shot voucher if they walk to school 8 times. And it says, and an Odeon cinema ticket for 5 journeys in a certain period. The controversial initiative is one of several schemes endorsed in a strategy which will urge councils and businesses to find more, quote, creative ways to improve the nation's health. Ministers say the approach is a departure from the Labor's nanny state tactics, which attempted to lecture people into changing their ways. And we'll go to here and we'll drop down to this paragraph, and it says, well, in opposition, David Cameron was so impressed with the 2008 bestseller Nudge by Chicago Business School economist Richard Thaler and Chicago Law School professor Cass Sunstein, which suggests how to influence human behavior, that he required all shadow cabinet members to read it during summer holidays. And what is influencing human behavior? That's modifying human behavior. That's mind control. That's what it is. So you can go through here and you can check this out. It'll go more into it, talking about secondary school children were given a swipe card which they touched on receivers along official walking routes. So said under a pilot scheme, private companies will be asked to make it easier for working mothers to breastfeed by providing those returning to work with private areas to breastfeed or express milk, as well as flexible breaks and places to store milk. So, going to move on here. Says DOT exploring technology that would disable cell phones in cars. The Transportation Department is looking into technology to disable cell phones in vehicles, according to the Transportation Secretary, Ray LaHood. Quote, there's a lot of technology out there that can disable phones, and we're looking at that. And it says a number of those people came to our distracted driving meeting here in Washington, and that's one way. So he says it has a good chance of making its way into cars. Wireless companies see signal scrambling technology as a blunt instrument in the fight against distracted driving, pointing out that cell phones are just a distraction in the car. So whether it's a distraction in your car, it's your liability. If you hit somebody, you should be liable for it. But you shouldn't have a law or give your rights away to a bunch of fascists to be able to turn your car off remotely, to be able to turn your cell phone off remotely, to be able to buzz your car so that you know that you got a fascist pig behind you. Says new one up, new East Palo Alto license plate readers will run plates through crime databases. By the new year, East Palo Alto Police Department will be using automatic license plate readers to identify lawbreakers. So next one up here is your video game machine watching you. It says Microsoft officials are considering using cameras on their new Kinect video game system to target ads to people watching the game. Here's what I was telling you about. X-37B spy spacecraft returns to Earth. It says the U.S. military's mysterious space shuttle has returned to Earth after over 7 months in space spying on its citizens. Russian satellites fall into the Pacific.